This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, thank you for joining. Today, it is a continuation for the last session we had, where we covered what is VPC and how the VPC is designed with the CIDR block and how the subnets are and what subnets are and what is public subnet and what is private subnet. And today we are going to, I don't have many slides to talk about today, but definitely I will want to show a lot of things on the console, where I will talk about how the IP addresses are managed in AWS when you create any EC2 instance, or when you create any gateway or elastic IP or load balancer, all the stuff today. I will try to cover it within today's session itself. So first of all, when you create any EC2 instance, right? So what Amazon does is, it for every EC2 instance, you will have to associate that instance with a particular VPC, correct? So let me talk about that in this dialog, where I am creating a particular EC2 instance here. Here it talks about the network. So basically, whenever you are creating any server or a PC, you have to put it in one or the other network. That's what we told. If you don't create any of your custom VPC for your account, so there will be a default VPC created for you when you create your account. So based on that, it is going to provide you the IP address. So, but every EC2 instance you create, there will be two types of IP addresses available. One is a public IP address and another is a private IP address. So private IP address will be based on your subnet definitions and your VPC definitions. But whereas a public IP address, it is a setting that will be that can be configured for your subnet. Say, let's say I have selected my VPC here, and then I have a public, in this case, I have four subnets created in two availability zones. So let's say I want to create a EC2 instance in a public subnet. And then as soon as I select my public subnet, it says that my public subnet, what I have is, I said I do not want any public IP address for the instances I create in this subnet. So that's what it says. Use subnet settings, right? I will show you how the subnet settings are. But when we create that instance, you can override that. You can override that and say that enable it, so that this particular EC2 instance will get a public IP address when it is created. So what it does is, basically AWS has a pool of public IP addresses. Whenever somebody says that I want a public IP address, it picks one of the IP address available from that pool, IP address pool, and that IP address will be assigned to this particular EC2 instance. But as you have to be very careful that if you are publishing that public IP address to your client, say let's say you are running a server where you will be having a lot of clients to be using that server, where they will be invoking through browser or some other application. Say if you are communicating this address, but this address may not be permanent, right? This is a dynamic IP address. It may keep changing because, say, let's say for some reason you have restarted your server. When the server is EC2 instance is restarted, so what Amazon does is, it will again reassign another IP address. It may reassign another IP address from the pool, and it will release it, because as soon as the EC2 instance shuts down, the IP address is released and it goes back to that pool. And in that time period, if say some other EC2 instance belongs to some other account, asks for a public IP address, that old IP address can go to that another EC2 instance. So this particular public IP address is not guaranteed to be same across reboots, right? So that is something you need to remember. And also you remember there will be a private IP address will be assigned, and that will be permanent because that private IP address is based on your subnet definition and VPC definition. So that also I will show you, but that is one thing. And but say there are cases where you want to have your own static public IP address. So that is where elastic IP comes into picture, where let me show you the elastic IPs here. You can actually create a new elastic IP address that will be a static IP address will be given to you, and that you can use it with your EC2 instance that can survive across the reboots. Okay, so that is one thing, and another thing I wanted to I was talking about that subnet public IP address settings. Let me show you. Let me go to my VPC. So this VPC I have created in the last session where I have these subnets. If you look at each subnet, these top 4 rows here listed here are the subnets I have created for my VPC, right? And one of the settings, it says auto assign public address, which I said no, right? So that is why you see whenever I'm selecting this, but any one of these public this subnet, and it says you will not be getting any default public address. But whereas if you look at your default subnets that is being created by AWS automatically, that is where the settings are saying yes. So that's the reason in the last few sessions when we were creating our EC2 instance where I have installed a web server, and I was trying to access that web server using the public IP address. So I was able to access it because I was launching those EC2 instances in the default VPC and default VPC subnet, and every subnet in the default VPC is having a setting called auto assign IPv4 address. You see this is for IPv4 and this is for IPv6. But IPv6 they're not assigning automatically, but for IPv4 they're automatically assigning one IP address. Okay, so that is something you have to understand how the IP addresses are being allocated and how long they will be available for this. I would say the lifetime or life cycle of those IP addresses, and which can survive across reboots and which cannot survive across reboots. So whatever auto assignment that is done by the AWS, let's say you can change the settings here. Suppose I have my public subnet here, and I can select that, and I can go to actions, and it says modify auto assign IP settings, right? Where I have auto assign IPv4, I can do enable. So from now, whenever I create any EC2 instance in this particular subnet, I'm going to get one public IP address. So like that, we can actually make changes. So that is how we can actually control all the IP address, how the IP address will be assigned to EC2 instances. So any questions here on the IP address part, how it is being allocated and how those can be managed? All right. So and on the private IP address side, whenever you create a particular EC2 instance, you will be provided a private IP address based on the CADR block. So in case, let's say in this case, if you are creating a EC2 instance in this particular subnet, you're going to get say 10.0.2. Say 4 or 5, depending on the next IP address available within this CADR block. That address will be allocated, and that will be fixed for your EC2. And other EC2 instances within the same subnet, they can communicate with this particular private IP address. Okay, that can be done. So having said that, I think we covered how the IP addresses will be allocated and how is the visibility for those IP addresses. So any of these private IP addresses will not be accessible publicly. But if you say your EC2 instance or your particular server requires access from the external world, you will have to have this need assign a public IP address setting enabled. When you either you can put it enablement for the total subnet or per EC2 instance basis, you can provide those settings. But again, there also you need to be careful where that IP address may change if the EC2 instance is rebooted or uh, EC2 instance or server I will be using interchangeably, but you understand that EC2 instance typically people use for installing their servers or software. So I'm just using the term called EC2 instance. All right. So now let me check what is my next agenda. Okay. So this is about a NAT instance, which I will talk about now. So to talk about that, let me couple of EC2 instances I create. Let me start with my free tier. Feel free to ask any questions if I'm doing here. And here I am selecting my VPC and I am selecting one of my public subnet. And here I am overriding my settings saying enabling so that I will be getting a public IP address here. So I will not be talking about these things. I think we have already covered on the EC2 session. I'm just naming it as a public server as a tag. And on the security group, I have a group called web server security group. I will be assigning it. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm opening up the ports called 8080 for IPv4 and IPv6 traffic, and SSH port for everybody for only IPv4. Okay, so I am launching it and I have my key here. So I am launching it, and while it launches, I will also launch another EC2 instance in my private subnet. Here I am selecting again my VPC here, and I am selecting my private subnet, and I will not ask to assign a public IP here because there is no use. My subnet itself is not routable to the internet, so no point in having a public IP here. I am tagging my server with a name. Here I don't need any security groups, but I just want to ping. I want to ping this particular EC2 instance from my public subnet EC2 server. I will show about that. So that's the reason I'm opening this port. Here I'm using the same key. So my public server or EC2 instance is almost ready. If I show you the attributes here, as you see, I have launched this on my subnet. I will be getting a private IP address within that same subnet here, private IP within that subnet, but whereas I also have a public IP address. Okay. what I'll do is I will try to SSH to it. You are seeing my screen, right? Tribunal, can anybody help?
Yes, we can see your screen.
The terminal?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So on the terminal, so what I do is let me bring up the public IP address which I have, where I will try to connect through terminal. To user at the public IP address is 52, 36, and 32, and 233. And I have the, let me check, I have the key or not. Yeah, I have my key here, that's open. So I will be using that. Okay. So as you see, I am able to connect to this, and from here I will be able to install uh, any software as well, right? Like say, like in the class we installed a Apache web server, right? So I have given the command. So what this particular EC2 instance or the server did is it went to internet, because I downloaded the Apache web server and installed in this particular EC2 instance. So it says that it has a internet access. This is anything which is launched in the public subnet is routable to the internet, and this can access internet. But let us see what can be done for the EC2 instances that are launched in the private subnet, right? Here, if I see my private server is also up, let me see if there is any public IP address. Obviously, there is no public IP address. And also, if you notice the private IP address here, it says 10.03.121 because we have launched in the private, and that CIDR block is, we gave something like 10.0.3.0-24, right? So let me ping that mission. Right. So looks like it is not pinging. Let me check why it is not pinging.
No, that is a 121. You enter only 12.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Right. So I'm able to talk to this particular EC2 instance, which is available in the private subnet, right? But if I do the same thing for from my terminal alone, so let me open another terminal. I will not be able to access it for the same reason, because this is a private network. But I should also be able to connect from this particular server to the my private EC2 instance that I will be doing now. Then what I will do is I will try to install same web server from here. Let me try to connect it. So for that also I need, as you know, like we are not no more in the my box. We are in the public IP EC2 instance server. So we are currently here in the public server, right? So as you can see, I don't have those that key which I use to connect, right? So first of all, I will try to copy that particular key so that I will be able to connect SSH to that private server. So I'll say nano kp.spam and I pasted the key which I use for connection. Right. So I have this key. Let me cat to make sure I have. Okay. Then I do a permission change so that I have that permissions, and then I will try to connect SSH from this public server to private server, right? So I do the same thing, EC2 user. At this time, I'm going to use the private IP address, right? And then I use that temp file which I created from, I copied the key from the same key value pair. So while it is taking it, let me check the security group which has to make sure I have that 22 port open for this or not, because like SSH will be using that port. Let me check that. So let me go to my EC2 dashboard. I have security group where I have ping one. So yeah, it looks like we have not assigned it. What I can do is I can add a rule with this SSH, right? And for now, let me give for everybody, but still nobody can access it because they don't have that key value pair with them. Only I can access it. So I'm opening up that one, and that's the reason you see my terminal is not responding. But let me try again. It should be working now. Yeah, you see, as I opened it, I have added that port into that. I'm able to connect to my private subnet, right? So actually this tells two things. One is that in the IAM section, or when you change any changes to the security group, which is already assigned to EC2 instance, the change will take immediately, okay? So here, install, I use the same command, okay? So this is, okay, so let me go to sudo. Then I have changed into root user. Then I use the same command. Here I try to install say Apache web server. It is not going to work because this particular EC2 instance is put in the private subnet. So any servers which are available in the private subnet will not have access to the internet. So, but what we do is typically we keep all those, typically we keep database servers, we keep application servers, all these servers we typically keep in the private subnet in the real-time deployment, right? So how do we patch them? Say there is a OS patch which needs to be applied to these servers, or there is a software needs to be installed which is available on the internet. So how to do that? So that is where the NAT instance comes into picture, which I told the NAT instance lab, or I will talk about concepts only. So that is where this NATing comes into picture, where we will have to create a NAT instance or a NAT gateway on the VPC and put it in one of the public subnet. Then all the internet traffic that is required for these private subnet instances, that will go to that particular NAT instance. So there are two options here. Even if you go for certification or if you go for interview, they will ask, will you use a NAT instance or will you use a NAT gateway? But I will definitely use a NAT gateway for that, because NAT instance, it is available, provided by the AWS itself, but you will have to do some manual steps on top of the NAT instance if you use it. And also you will have to take care of availability and all. Say for some reason the NAT instance goes down, it won't. The private subnet EC2 instances will again stop working. But whereas in the NAT gateway is a kind of a managed service from AWS, which will take care of failure. Say if it fails in one availability zone, it will be available in another availability zone, and from there it can be served. So always a NAT gateway is recommended for that purpose. But as you know, the use case is this. So NAT gateway basically allows you the internet access for those EC2 instances that are in private network. So let me add the NAT gateway in my VPC here.
Hey Hari, is it a NAT
Yeah.
instance or NAT? Which one is managed service? Is it gateway or
NAT
instance?
gateway is the managed service, so it will take care of high availability and all. We need not to worry about it.
Okay.
And this is the recommended approach. Gateway is the recommended one, whereas NAT instance, I would say I would not recommend for a production level deployment. Okay. So here I will pick one of my public subnet. I can place that in any of my public subnet. So I'm just putting them in one of my public subnet. The VPC is my VPC, and I've selected the public net, and I have a elastic IP allocated for it, so that IP address will be used for all the external communication. Then that's all I have to do for creating the NAT. Just have to provide two details. And then one more thing we'll have to do is the route table what we have created in the last session, right? Which has the routes within the subnet. Like if you look at this route table, you have a route defined for within the subnet communication. So because of this, we were able to talk with from our public to this particular private thing. So here we have to add one more route, which is the public route. But this time not for the internet gateway. This time we'll have to select the NAT gateway we just created it. So let me check my NAT gateway is ready or not. So it takes some time to get ready. Once it is ready, then we will go back to our terminal and we'll try to reinstall it. We should be able to get the internet for this private instance. So yeah, even if you are going for a certification or anything, if you have an option, both NAT instance and NAT gateway, and they give this kind of problem, you should go with NAT gateway. That is what Amazon recommends.
So for the NAT instance, you're saying it should be completely maintained by us, whoever is a
Right.
vendor for. Okay.
Right, that's correct. NAT instance, I can show you that. Let me go to EC2 instance. If I go for a new instance, if I look for community AMS here, right? If I search for a NAT, I should be getting NAT instance here.
So Hari, I have just one question. Like in that case, what is the use case for NAT instance?
Exactly. I was about to ask the same question too. So.
Yeah. So like Amazon, right? They keep on evolving. They are evolving day by day. Like they come up with today, they come up with one service, and then they like trial and error, right? As they see a lot of limitations, like all the limitations which I talked about now, they have fixed those limitations and they come up with a new version. At the same time, they want to support the backward compatibility as well, right? So that is when the NAT instance is the very first came before NAT gateway. Then they saw the problems, production problems or practical problems, and they have fixed all those problems in the next version, and they named it as a NAT gateway. And now they recommend use NAT gateway, but we are also providing support for NAT instance. So that's why two are there.
Okay. So going forward, like if somebody has to set up something from scratch, it should always go with gateway. Otherwise, like this
Right.
instance is only
Right.
for support for already set up environment where they are using it.
Right, that's correct. And also, like in some cases, your requirement is not so big, and billing also is another factor which you need to consider. I am sure NAT gateway would be costing you more dollars than a single NAT instance. So if you know that your use cases are very limited, your use cases are very limited, and you can effectively manage your NAT instance. In that case, you can save some dollars by just using NAT instance. So this is another factor which you can consider using NAT instance versus NAT gateway, right? Okay, so let me check my NAT gateway is up or not, right? It is up. So let me go back to my instance, but again, I will try to install it now. Now I got the internet, I'm able to install it. So this is what I wanted to show you. This I want to demonstrate that how a private IP address and which does not have public IP address and which is in private subnet, we can enable the internet access for patching and all those stuff. So your day-to-day work also, you will be say if you are a IT admin or a network admin, I'm sure you will be come across this kind of requirement one or the other time, where you will be creating your NAT gateway into your public domain, subdomain. Okay. Any questions on this? Otherwise, I have some more. I think which is more I'll have to talk about. But any questions I can take. But one or two questions I can take on that. This one. Okay, so that is one thing. And second thing, another thing I wanted to cover in this. So if you look at, I will. Sorry, I'm very lazy. I used some of the existing pictures only to talk about what it is. Okay, so but yeah, let me talk. Okay, so let's talk about the subnets here, right? Suppose I have this subnet, and I have two subnets, private and two public subnets, And as you know, like I told, like public subnet is very ideal for placing all your database servers, application servers, which do not need any public interface. So you will be placing there, right? But once you have placed the servers here and you put into the production, sometimes there may be some problems where you will have to debug, or you will have to get access to the application logs or database server logs, and you want to troubleshoot something, you want to try something. So in that case, you need to have an access to these private servers, right? So how can we get that access? One way is that we have uh, we have logged into our public EC2 instance, which is in the public subdomain, and then
Sorry to interrupt. Can you repeat that scenario once again?
yeah, so you have your servers, right? So whenever, how you will structure your servers, all your servers, web servers which are accessed by the end user, you will be placing them into your public subnet, right? And those database servers, your application servers, which do not need any public interface. I mean, nobody from outside uh, need to access these servers, right? In that kind of servers, you will be placing in your public subnet. So, but
I think it's
in
private, right?
sorry, yeah, sorry, yeah, private subnet. So which the application server, database servers, all things we will be putting in the private subnet, correct? So, but in the production, let's say you have some problem where your database server is not scaling, or your database server is taking too long to respond, or one of the module in your application server is crashed, and you want to troubleshoot why it is crashed. So you will have to have access to your application logs or database server logs. So how can you get access to it? So typically what we do is, from our corporate network, we do SSH to that particular database server. We call it as a jumpstart server or a bastion server. You will first be connecting to that particular server. From there, you will be connecting to database server, right? So that is the approach. Like traditionally, that is how we do. We get an access to the jump box, then we connect to the database server. So similarly, in the AWS, there is a concept called bastion host, which you will be defining. It is nothing but a EC2, another EC2 server, but you will have a very limited access. The security group, basically, you will be closing all the ports except SSH, and then you will be connecting to that particular bastion host. From that bastion host, you will be connecting to your database servers or application servers for troubleshooting purpose. So this is nothing to demonstrate, but this is one good to use, or the people ask about this in interviews, or if the people ask about this in the certification. And also it is very good thing to know if you are designing your VPC application end to end. This is something you have to be aware of, but that is nothing special. You will be launching another EC2 instance whose only purpose is to connect to your EC2 instances that are located in the private subnet. Okay, any question?
Yeah, Hari. So a little bit more details. So then, what is the difference between the NAT and this
Yeah, good
bastion
question.
server?
Yeah. So NAT basically allows those EC2 instances that are available in the private subnet to get access to the internet and download something and patch some OS patches. Say, let's say you have uh, Fedora or Linux OS, and there is a patch available in the internet. You want to take it. So with the NAT gateway, you will be able to talk to internet and get those patches to your EC2 instance. But it is the other way. The bastion is basically to have a very secure access to your database servers and application servers. Let's say in my case, right? In this, let's take this case. What I did is I have connected to the EC2 instance, which is in the private network, from a EC2 instance, which is in the public subnet. But if you look at my public subnet EC2 instance security group, I have opened HTTP port. I may be opening some other set of ports, which may not be secure, right? So once that is the reason what we recommend is you put a EC2 instance which is having very tight security, which means there is no other port is open in that particular EC2 instance, and whose only purpose is to talk to this private subnet instances for troubleshooting purpose or debugging purpose. So you can think like NAT gateway is for OS patching or application patching, and whereas Bastion is for troubleshooting and debugging.
Okay.
Hari,
That helps
this
to understand? Yeah.
Yeah, Hari Sudipta here.
Yeah, tell me, Sudipta.
Yeah. So Bastion host, as you said, it's an EC2 instance. So whether it's required to be in the same region of the instances or the database server exists to access those, it's required to be in the same region, or it can be in the different region also.
Yeah, so what we do is, I mean, VPC is per region, right? So whichever
Right.
you create a VPC, it is a per region. So whenever you will be putting your Bastion host, you will have to be selecting one of the VPC. So that means it is per region. But I am not sure. I mean, like AWS, right? It evolves day by day. Like today, I say it is not there. You may get it like tomorrow. They may announce that it is available. But yeah,
Right.
what I understand is this per VPC, and the VPC is per region. Like so, I think it is per region.
Okay. Thanks.
So yeah, that association is what important. You can per region you can have a VPC. So VPC cannot span across region. If you see, I am in this particular region, and then only I am creating my VPC. Let me show you that.
Yeah.
So see, I am in here. That's why my VPC is being displayed here. But if I go back and change to a Mumbai or something, I will not be seeing my VPC here.
So basically, how let's say you created a Bastion host, means it's a EC2 instance. So you will have to select certain things to create the instance. I mean,
No,
it's a
what?
yeah.
Yeah. So you have to place that Bastion host in a subnet where the subnet has a routing for all the instances that are available in the private subnet. So if you look at my subnet, right? This you see my route table.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go back to my original region. So if I see my subnet here, this is the subnet I am associating to all my private instances, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So this route table has rules for within the subnet. It has route for communicate within the subnet. So if you place your particular Bastion host in a subnet which has routes for all the subnet, all the C area, then you are good. That particular host can talk to any of those hosts within that. So it's all the route table. I mean, it is routable or not within the CADR block within that VPC.
Okay.
Okay. So any more questions here, or we can move to this guy? Yeah, I want to talk about what we can also do is now that's the reason I have created two subnets. In the last section, we created only two subnets. One is private and one is public. But now what I did is I created two private subnets and two public subnets here. Just to show that I will have two database server or application servers created here, which I don't want any external interface, but I will expose them using a load balancer, where that load balancer will only have this public IP address through which I will be talking to. Okay, so what I will do now is, let me show you quickly what I'm planning to do. I will create two EC2 instances in a private subnet where I will install a web server which will not be accessible to external world because they are in a private subnet. But what I will do is I will keep those two web servers behind a load balancer, and I will access my web server using the load balancer. That is what the exercise I will be doing now. So again, I will be picking T2 Micro, which is freely available. So here again, I will be selecting my VPC, and I select one of the private subnet. And as you see, I don't have any public IP. But if you remember the EC2 class we talked about Bootstrap script. I will take that Bootstrap script to have some web service installed automatically. So if you look at this, what I will be doing is I am elevating myself to a super user, then I will be updating OS, and then I will be updating the web server, and then I'll be writing HTML code. So I say it's a private server.
I have one request, like the kind of script that you are using for this advanced details. So can we can you please include all this in the PPT for this session?
Yeah, sure.
So
Or I will copy in the location.
Thank
you. I will do that.
You.
Yeah, I will do that. I will copy this script as a Bootstrap script. I'll put it in the shared location so you can use it. But yeah, this is all SSH commands. You can put it. But what it is doing is it is downloading Apache web server. Then I'm creating a HTML file under this particular path, where www and HTML. Then I am writing a text file and then just indicating it is a server one. And then I'm starting the web server, right? Then I will add a tag which will tell that it's a private web server one, so I can know from which. So here I will have to open the ports because I'll have to. This is HTTP I'm running, so I will have to open the port. So I'm using web server security group here, and then I will not be connecting to this, but we have to select it. I am selecting it. So I have my web server one getting started, and I'll have to start one more. This will be my second private. What do I say? This is again I will be selecting, but this one I will be selecting in a different subnet. This is in another subnet I have selected here. Last time I selected in this US West 2A, but this time I'm selecting in a second subnet. So my servers are like, this is the actual scenario, right? Whenever you deploy your application, you will be putting in a cluster of servers where the requests from multiple clients will be shared by these servers and for a better response time. So the same thing we are doing here. I am keeping the same server, multiple servers, and I am putting all of them into behind a load balancer. So all the requests that will be coming from the clients will be shared by these multiple instances, right? So I will be copying the same script again, but here I will say, just to make a difference, I will say private server 2. And rest of the things are same. I will add a tag which says private server 2. And again, I will be using the security group because this server also will have a web application running. So I will open that port. So we are 8:50 now, but I think I will be able to complete in 10 minutes. But yeah, unfortunately, again, as usual, I'm not able to give the time for questions.
So Hari, you are creating the instance, EC2 instance. At the same time, you're also deploying an application.
Yes, that is correct. If
Okay.
you look at my script here, let me show you. My script is here. So I'm using this script to, I mean, whenever the EC2 instance is launched, it will be, I'm supplying this set of shell script commands that will be executed by the AWS automatically. Okay.
Okay.
So let me check. So these are the private server 1 and 2 are up and running. So what I do is I create a load balancer here. I create a load balancer for HTTP. Right. So it could be like, so you load balancer, sorry, I will be covering a load balancer maybe in 2 or 3 sessions later. But for now, you know that load balancer is like the one with facing the public or internet, taking all the requests, and internally it will be balancing the load within the group of servers. So that is what we are doing now, and that it has 2 options: internet facing or internal. You can have internal load balancer as well, but for now we are trying to create a load balancer which takes IPv4 traffic from the internet or outside, and internally it passes to the uh, servers. So in my case, I have the EC2 instances in these 2 subnets. So I am selecting both the uh, availability zones, and then I will be selecting my private subnet. So whenever the traffic from outside comes to this particular load balancer, it will route the traffic to these 2 availability zones of this private subnet. Okay, so that is the one, but I will cover in more detail about load balancer. But for now, what I'm doing is, because I have launched an EC2 instance in this particular subnet, I'm selecting this, and I have launched another EC2 instance in this subnet, so I'm selecting this in these 2 availability zones, right? And it is warning that because we say recommended for HTTPS SSL, but we are not doing it for now. Okay, then what I do is it says I will be selecting the same security group which is we selected while creating the EC2 instances, so that it will also have the same set of ports opened. So I am selecting web server security group where we have 808 port opened. Then it says target group. What target group is? This will have a list of instances to be, the load will be balanced on those instances. So here I am selecting instances because we have 2 instances, right? So I am creating a new target group. And this target group is based on instances, but in future we can do it based on the lambda or anything like that. But we will talk about that. But for now, we have two instances. So I'm selecting target type as instance. And so this target will listen to the same protocol and on the same port, right? Then on this, we have my private server 1 and private server 2. These are the two servers we created, right? So I am selecting them and putting them into the target group. Then I am creating the load balancer. So I have created the load balancer here. I think load balancer takes some time to provision, but I think we should be able to complete that. Let's give some time. Meanwhile, I can take the questions also.
In the console, how can I go to the load balancer and see how many are there?
Yeah. So you can go to EC2.
Oh, it is in the set.
Right. So once you go to EC2, and you can see this guy here, load balancer. All right.
Hari, you must have selected your application load balancer.
No, I have selected. Let me check what I selected. So yeah, there are three types of load balancer. I will want to talk about it, but not now. Basically, I have selected application load balancer because that is basically a very specific, dedicated for a web application kind of load balancer.
Right.
But you can actually do a network load balancer where you can specify a particular port like TCP or UDP level, or you can have a very raw version of load balancer where you will have to specify the port and everything manually. So, but yeah, I will try to cover this on another session because a lot of things we talked about.
Right.
Yeah, but in this case, I have selected application load balancer. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So let me go back and check my target group, how it is. I am tensed. It is.
Hi, Hari.
Hi.
Yeah, just one question, like what exactly is difference between that application, network, or classic? Like how exactly that classic load balancer differs from the other two?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I will try to cover about that, but basically it is all about the classic balancer is the very first load balancer which Amazon had it in the available for creating it, where you will have to specify your what kind of application it is. It is a web application, or you want to at network level. There are some cases at network level which in a particular port you want to do the load balancing. So in that case, people go with this guy, TCP UDP, where they will specify the actual. This is a TCP or UDP that level. They can specify, but whereas in the classic load balancer, you will have to specify the particular port number itself. But here, if you look at this, it is already selected. It is already pre-selected, HTTP and this.
Got it. So that one was kind of a plain vanilla load balancer where you have to configure everything from scratch.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. How Amazon does is for everything there will be one version, and later they come up with the new version and they keep the new version, and that is where people get confused also. But that is how they are doing, and I agree they have to maintain the backward compatibility as well. So that's the reason they keep the old one as well, right?
Yes, earlier I remember there was only classic load balancer.
Right.
But later on they have introduced another two types of load balancer, this application and network.
That's correct. Yeah. So now you see my load balancer is active. The state is active. So that means it is readily available to take the public traffic. And before that, I will also check target group. This is my target group where I have these two servers. And if I see the health of these things, they are healthy. That means internally there is a health check in place. What it does is it keeps invoking that particular URL on a periodic basis, where you can keep how frequently you have to try that health check, and based on that, if it gets the response 200 back, that means it assumes that it is healthy, and based on that, it will update the status as healthy here. That means this is also another thing which we need to know, or when we are troubleshooting it, say, let's say you have defined your load balancer here, but people are trying to call that particular service, but it is not giving the response. The immediate thing one we should be doing is, what is the target group it is? Here you can see the target group it is talking to, this particular load balancer. You can see the target group here. If I click here, I go to that particular target group, and then I go to the targets and I check the status of them and to make sure they are healthy or not. I mean, these are all some real-time things which, when you're troubleshooting, these things matters for you, right? So this is what it is. So where you have your private EC2 instances, you have put it in your private subnet and we are exposing it. Let me go to my load balancer and get my DNS name. So this is my DNS name. And also one more thing you need to understand, load balancers, they don't give IP address, but they give a DNS name, so using which you will be able to talk to that particular server. So this should give me my web server page, but let's see why it is not given. So this is active, and I see the routing. Let me see. Let me copy again. So let me see the routing part. Yeah, so this is how we will be placing it. This particular thing I'll have to check where exactly it could have been went wrong, but looks like the time is 9 o'clock. I will continue the session from here where we left. I will also tell you where exactly we did wrong, or I'm sure there may be some routing which we'll have to correct in this case, which will enable our traffic. That I will continue in the next session. But any questions till now? I mean, at least we know what we tried to do, right? Till now.
Hari, this is Madhu. I have a question. So basically, now that we will be exploring the AWS, trying to do hands-on, can you just tell us what things we may want to stop if these things are not in use, so that we can, if we are paying for it, then how we can restrict to pay what is being used? Is
Yeah.
that
So
quick?
Basically,
there you are.
effective cost management, like how we can do cost cutting.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, so for better billing and the cost optimization, right? So it's all how you manage your users. Basically, it is all a mixed responsibility and a disciplined way of you have to be provisioning your AWS resources. First of all, you will have to have a very good groups and users created in your AWS account, so that not everybody who logs into the AWS console with your organization account, or typically your enterprise will have one account, and after that you will be another user will be created for you. You will be able to log in there, and you will be able to use some services. So your IAM thing, let me show you the IAM thing where you have to take very good care of, so that only some designated people can create your AWS resources. That is the first thing, right? You will be keep on adding users, and then you will be adding groups, and you will be adding those, like say IT group or a system engineering group. You will be adding them to that, and then you will have correct policies where, okay, this particular group can only create EC2 instances, and whereas another group can add watch service, and there is another group can access S3 buckets. So like that, first of all, you have to make the restriction within the IAM. That is one thing. Then also you will have to enforce your very strict tagging guidelines. So whoever creates any resource, you'll have to make sure you have entered tags and all those details. And then later you will be able to find out on the billing alerts. You will have to provide your billing alerts where you say EC2 instance usage is gone up, or which particular service is costing me more money for your account. You will have to create your billing alerts, and then you will be able to narrow down your resources based on the tags or based on what you create. So I mean, there are so many things you'll have to work together to really review your AWS costs and keep them under control.
Just to add here, Hari, this is Sudipta. So just to add here, I think there are some external tools also available like Cloud Checker and all. So that also can be integrated with your account so that you can have the billing details in that portal. Based on the, let's say you have multiple accounts, you have multiple projects running, and each project how it costs based on the AWS using of the AWS resources. So that could be one of the option also. Anyway, in AWS we have our Cost Explorer. So, but additionally, there is external tools also available. I am aware of some Cloud Checker, but I am not sure. Maybe there are some other tools or other possibilities are there. So that is also we can do that to to limit our cost.
So that is for limiting, or that is for alerting users for if there is a cost?
Yeah, that can be used as a alerting also. So you can log into that portal and see your cost based on the resources, and also if it can be linked to your email. So one email will be trigger that your usage is this much and your cost is this much. So you'll get
So
a mail
basically
also.
it's a reporting
Yeah,
kind of.
Hari, I just during our chat itself, I just explored that Cloud Checker. So it looks like the for API management we have APG from Google. So similarly, it is for your cloud management tool. Like you can provide your details about your setup, and then it will keep a check on all the things running there.
Right. Yeah. So I am not sure if it stops you to create the resources or it just wants you. That is what I am trying to say. But I mean, there are tools, but before that, we will have to have this kind of discipline while creating resources, and you have to respect within the. I mean, there are two things, right? One is that avoid going to that cost. Second thing is act or proactive or reactive, right? There are two approaches. So I'm trying to understand the external tool is reactive or a proactive one. Proactive is where it will not allow you to go beyond $300 on a EC2 instance. That is what I would say proactive. Whereas the reactive one, it sends you an email or it sends you an alert after it crosses 300, right? Then you will have to go back and explore something and you shut down some of the EC2 instances. So yeah, I'm sure there will be tools available like what Sugita was mentioning. Yeah, we'll have to explore that.
Right, Hari. Yeah.
Yeah, any more questions? All right, thank you very much. So what I will do is in the next session, I will continue from where we left. I'm sure I'll be able to troubleshoot this guy, and I will also share what I did on top of the one we did from this session. We can take it from there. And I anticipate there will be one more session on VPC where we connect, we create VPC endpoints and we connect our on-premise network to VPC. I hope I will be able to cover that in the next session. Then this load balancer and high availability topics a lot. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Hari. Thank you so much. Bye.